Welcome to a milestone in Touchstone's Music, episode 20. My series on wonderful and sometimes forgotten albums from the 60s that I hope everyone will enjoy, give a listen to, or give a re-listen to. We celebrate our 20th anniversary by featuring the self-titled debut album of a group that would go on to dominate the hard rock world of the 70s. From 1969, Led Zeppelin. Let's hear a little clip from one of those songs, arguably one of the more famous songs, Dazed and Confused, off of this debut album.
Been dazed and confused for so long, it's not true.
Let's meet the band. John Bonham on drums, Robert Plant on vocals, Jimmy Page on guitar, and John Paul Jones on bass and keyboards. The origins of Led Zeppelin mostly lie in Jimmy Page's previous group, the Yardbirds, in England. Page had been a successful session player before following his mate Jeff Beck into the Yardbirds. The Yardbirds had started as a rhythm and blues group with lead guitarist Eric Clapton, then morphed into psychedelic pop with Clapton's replacement Jeff Beck, and finally into maximum R&B with Page on lead guitar. When the Yardbirds dissolved, Page was left with a head full of ideas for a follow-up group, which he initially pictured as the New Yardbirds. Other British groups such as The Who and the Jeff Beck Group, which incidentally included Rod Stewart on vocals and future Rolling Stone Ron Woods, at that time on bass, had also been wowing fans with their versions of amped-up R&B music. The Jeff Beck Group had already stormed the U.S., had absolutely slayed them there and just left them panting for more of that kind of stuff, and Led Zeppelin was about to deliver it to them. Page recruited Band of Joy alumni Robert Plant and John Bonham, and then fellow session player John Paul Jones. These guys were, especially Jones and Page, were already heavyweights in the session business, and now they were going to assault the live acts. From their first rehearsal, it was obvious that the four were very compatible musically. After completing some early tour days in Europe as the New Yardbirds, they entered the studio to record their first album. Now, they were unable to continue as the New Yardbirds for contractual reasons, so they had to come up with something else. They came up with Led Zeppelin, which fit their blend of hard-edged R&B mixed in with acoustic English folk-inspired softer tunes, kind of heavy and soft. Led Zeppelin. The album was recorded September-October 68 Olympic Studios in London, and Jimmy Page produced it himself. Now, they did quite well. The U.S., they did number 10 on the U.S. Billboard 200. That's very respectable. Number 6 on the UK albums, but that doesn't tell the whole story. Look at the bottom. Look at certified sales. Now, this is after a number of years, but nonetheless. Certified sales in the U.S., 8 times platinum. That means 8 million units certified as being sold. In the U.K., twice platinum. That means for the U.K., 600,000 units sold. So whatever the critics might have thought of the album, the public obviously voted with their money, with their purchases. The album is, of course, self-titled. The genesis of the band's name started when one of their friends, as a matter of fact, Keith Moon, the drummer for The Who, joked that their new band would go over like a lead balloon. They kicked that around for an idea, and it gradually morphed into Led Zeppelin. The cover design is by a gentleman named George Hardy, and the cover photo was chosen by Jimmy Page. The cover image is actually a rendering of the original photo by George Hardy, I believe. Now, this is a famous photo from a group of famous photos showing the Zeppelin Hindenburg in flames as it tries to land over Lakehurst, New Jersey in May of 1937. This is known as the Hindenburg disaster. A number of people, both crew and passengers, lost their lives, unfortunately. And then there's also a back cover photo that's just a group photo of the band. I first heard about this new English rock band from a friend. He touted Jimmy Page as the new fastest gun in the blues rock world. I purchased the album sometime in the spring of 1969. Now, interestingly enough, in those days, especially for non-musicians, if you were the faster you could play on guitar, the better musician you were considered to be. This is not necessarily true as we know that today, but that's kind of was the thinking in those days. Their music sounded to me like the next logical step to where modern R&B had been heading. Anyway, we'd been listening to this for a number of years, but even local bands were playing the same kind of music. And so it just seemed like, sure, this is where it's got to go. I've been enjoying the album ever since. In some ways, this is my most favorite Zeppelin album. Now, full disclosure, I'm a big Zeppelin fan, so I love all their music, but this is the closest to the original R&B that I was brought up on, and that just was really exciting for us in those days, and still is for me. Now, on the vinyl, mostly you have original compositions by the band mixed in with a couple of blues standards. On side one, that blues standard by Willie Dixon, by the way, is called You Shook Me. But what we're going to hear is just a quick clip from the first song on the first side of the vinyl album, Good Times, Bad Times.
In the days of my youth, I was told what it means to be a man.
Wow. You know, if their first rehearsals sounded anything like that, they must have just thought, man, we got gold here. And they were right. Side two, there's another Willie Dixon song, I Can't Quit You, Babe. The rest are originals, and we're going to hear a little bit from Communication Breakdown. This will give you some idea, again, how exciting these guys sounded. Okay. No discussion of Led Zeppelin's success, however, would be complete without mentioning their legendary manager, Peter Grant. Grant had previously sent the Jeff Beck Group, featuring, among other people, Rod Stewart on vocals, to tour the U.S. after their first album, Truth, was released, and the band was an immediate smash hit with American audiences. As I said, just left them longing to hear more of that, and Led Zeppelin was about to deliver that. Grant had sensed that America was ready for such driving R&B, and their success helped pave the way for Zeppelin later on. Early on, Zeppelin were compared sometimes unfavorably to the Jeff Beck Group, but eventually earned their own massive following and critical acceptance. I wanted episode 20 to be something special, and what better way than to feature the debut album by this special group. The album has been another of my touchstones since I purchased it. I hope it will be for other music fans as well. That's all for this edition. As always, until next time, be well, and thanks for joining me.